My name is Anthony Sterling. I'm 34 years old, and 5 years ago, my own mother banned me from coming home for Thanksgiving because my existence was inconvenient for my brother's ego. Before I tell you how that single phone call led to my biological parents being humiliated by a judge at my own wedding, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It started on a Tuesday. I remember the day clearly because it was the day I finally bought the car I'd been dreaming about since I was 16. A Porsche Panamera, black on black. It wasn't just a car to me. It was proof. Proof that the kid who was always told he wasn't smart enough, wasn't charismatic enough, wasn't Victor enough, had actually made something of himself. I'm a landscape architect. I take barren, ugly plots of land and turn them into something beautiful. Pays well, very well, actually. I just landed a massive promotion and a salary bump that put me in a different tax bracket. I was feeling good. I was feeling generous. I pulled into the driveway of my apartment complex, the engine purring like a contented cat. I sat there for a moment, gripping the leather steering wheel, imagining the look on my dad's face when I pulled up to their house in Connecticut for Thanksgiving. I had big plans. I had bought 3 first-class tickets to Hawaii for them and Victor as a Christmas gift. I wanted to treat them. I wanted, pathetically, to impress them. My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth speakers. Mom flashed on the dashboard screen. I smiled. "Hey, Mom. I was just about to call you. Wait until you see what I—" "Anthony, listen." She cut me off. Her voice was ice cold. There was no warmth, no "how are you," no maternal instinct whatsoever. Just business. And Linda Sterling was always about business. "I need to talk to you about Thanksgiving." "Yeah, I can't wait. I'm bringing the wine this year, and I actually have a surprise for you guys." "Don't," she said sharply. "That's what I'm calling about. Don't bring wine. Don't bring surprises. In fact, don't come." I froze. The engine was still idling, but the cabin suddenly felt airless. What? What do you mean, don't come? It's 3 days away. I've already cleared my schedule. "It's Victor," she sighed, the sound loud and distorted over the speakers. "He's going through a terrible time, Anthony. His girlfriend, that model, well, the Instagram model, she broke up with him. He is devastated. He's fragile right now." I blinked, trying to process this. My brother, Victor, was 36 years old. He had broken up with 4 girls this year alone. "Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. But why does that mean I can't come to Thanksgiving?" "Because," she snapped, her patience already evaporating. "You know how you are. You'll come in with your expensive suits and your stories about your big projects. And now I assume you're driving that fancy car you wouldn't shut up about. Victor doesn't need that rubbed in his face right now. He needs support, not competition. He doesn't need your drama." Drama. That was her favorite word. My success was drama. My independence was drama. Meanwhile, Victor, who was 36, lived in their pool house rent-free, and borrowed money he never paid back, was fragile. "Mom, I just got a promotion. I wanted to celebrate with my family. I'm not trying to rub anything in anyone's face." "See? That's exactly it," she said, her voice raising an octave. "It's always about you, isn't it? I got a promotion, I want to celebrate. Your brother is in pain. God, Anthony, why can't you just be the bigger person for once? Just stay in the city. We'll see you at Christmas." Maybe. In the background, I heard a roar. It was the distinct, high-pitched whine of a V10 engine. Is that a car engine?" I asked. "Victor is just going for a drive to clear his head," Mom said quickly. "He's distraught." "Mom, that sounds like a Lamborghini." "It's a rental," she yelled, defensive now. "He needed something to cheer him up. Look, I have to go. He needs gas money. Just don't come, Anthony. We don't want you there." The line went dead. I sat there in my brand new Porsche, a successful man in his 30s, feeling like a 7-year-old who just got picked last for kickball. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from a rage so hot it felt like it was burning a hole in my chest. Victor was distraught, so he rented a Lamborghini with my parents' money. And I was banned because my actual earned success would make him feel bad. I dialed my father, Robert Sterling. The man who taught me how to tie a tie but never taught me how to stand up for myself because he never stood up for anything. He answered on the fourth ring. Anthony. He sounded tired. He always sounded tired. Dad. Did Mom tell you she just uninvited me to Thanksgiving? A pause. She mentioned she was going to call you. And you're okay with this? You're okay with banning your son from the holiday table because Victor rented a Ferrari and feels insecure? It's a Lamborghini, actually, Dad muttered. Look, Tony, you know how your mother is, and you know how Victor gets. If you come down here and he sees you doing well, he's going to throw a fit. He'll ruin the dinner. Your mother just wants peace. Peace. I laughed. A bitter, jagged sound. Dad, she wants compliance. There's a difference. I bought you guys tickets to Hawaii. I wanted to do something nice. Hawaii. Dad's voice cracked. For a second, I heard the longing in it. He loved the ocean. He hadn't been on a vacation in 10 years because Victor always needed bailout money for some failed business venture. That was very generous of you, son. But maybe you can use them or save them. You're not going to fight for me, are you? I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. Just once, Dad. I needed you to say, no, Anthony is coming home. Just once. Silence stretched between us. I could hear the TV in the background. Probably a football game. He was sitting in his recliner, hiding. Just like always. It's better this way, Anthony, he finally said. Just stay in Boston. We'll talk soon. He hung up. I threw my phone onto the passenger seat. It bounced off the leather and hit the floor mat. I stared at the dashboard. My new car. My promotion. My life. It all felt hollow. I had two choices. I could go up to my apartment, order a pizza, and drink a bottle of scotch while watching old movies. That's what the old Anthony would have done. The Anthony who believed he deserved to be hidden away. But I looked at the fuel gauge. Full tank. No, I said aloud to the empty car. No, I am not doing this. I put the car in reverse. I wasn't going to Connecticut, but I wasn't staying home either. I drove. I drove aimlessly for an hour, the city lights blurring past me, until I found myself near the harbor. There was a place there, the Harborview Grill. It was old school, expensive, and usually impossible to get into on a holiday. But I didn't care. I pulled up to the valet, tossed him the keys to the Porsche, and walked in. I was wearing jeans and a bomber jacket, not a suit. I didn't care. I walked up to the hostess stand. Table for one, I said. The hostess looked at me with that pitying look reserved for stray dogs and people eating alone on Thanksgiving. Just one, sir. Just one. I was about to have the loneliest, most expensive meal of my life. But I didn't know yet that walking into that restaurant was the best decision I ever made. The restaurant smelled like roasted sage, brown butter, and expensive perfume. It was warm, dimly lit, and absolutely packed with families. Everywhere I looked, I saw the things I was supposed to have. Fathers clinking glasses with sons. Mothers wiping grandkids' faces. The low, steady hum of people who belonged together. The hostess led me through the maze of happy tables to a small two-top near the back, right next to the kitchen door. It was the loser table. I sat down, my back to the wall, trying to make myself as small as possible. Your server will be with you shortly, she said, dropping a menu that looked more like a book on the table. I pulled out my phone. It was a reflex. I opened Instagram. The first thing that popped up was a story from Linda. It was a video. They were in the dining room. The table was set with the good china. The china she explicitly told me never to touch when I was a kid. Victor was at the head of the table, holding a glass of wine, laughing his head off. My dad was forcing a smile next to him. So grateful for my boys, the caption read. I felt a physical blow to my gut. My boys, plural. But there was only one boy there. I wasn't just uninvited. I was erased. It wasn't about drama. It was about the fact that they preferred the fantasy of Victor, the golden child who needed them, over the reality of me, the son who didn't need them anymore. I put the phone down, face down. My hands were trembling. A waiter rushed past, carrying a heavy tray of water glasses. He clipped the edge of my table. Crash. A glass shattered. Ice water soaked my jeans. The tray clattered to the floor. "Oh my God. I am so sorry, sir." The waiter panicked, grabbing napkins. The entire section went quiet. People turned to look. I sat there, water dripping off my lap, surrounded by broken glass and staring eyes. It was the perfect metaphor for my life. A mess. Public spectacle. "It's fine," I managed to say, though my voice was thick. "It's just water." But it wasn't just water. My eyes started to burn. I fought it. I fought it with every ounce of dignity I had left. But a single hot tear rolled down my cheek. I quickly wiped it away, looking down at the wet tablecloth, wishing the floor would open up and swallow me whole. "Excuse me." The voice was soft, authoritative, and feminine. I looked up. Standing there was a woman who looked like she stepped out of a classic movie. Silver hair cut into a sharp bob, wearing pearls that looked realer than my car, and eyes that were incredibly sharp behind designer glasses. She was standing at the large round table next to mine. "I think," she said to the flustered waiter, "that this gentleman has had enough excitement for one evening. Why don't you clear this mess and bring another setting to our table?" I blinked. Excuse me?" The woman turned her gaze to me. "My name is Eleanor, and my husband, Richard, has been telling the same story about his golf handicap for 20 minutes. If you don't come sit with us and save me, I might actually divorce him right here on Thanksgiving. And the lawyers are so expensive on holidays." I looked at her table. There was an older man, Richard, who looked like a retired Santa Claus with a neatly trimmed beard. There was a younger guy around my age, looking amused, and a woman next to him holding a baby. "Ma'am, I couldn't," I stammered. "I'm soaking wet. I'd be intruding." "Nonsense," Richard boomed from the table. He stood up, napkin in hand. "Eleanor is right. You look like you need a drink, and I need a new audience. Come on, son. Pull up a chair." "No one should eat alone on Thanksgiving," Eleanor said, her voice dropping the humor and hitting a note of pure sincerity. "Please, join us." I looked at the empty loser table covered in glass. Then I looked at the warm, open faces of these strangers. "Okay," I whispered. "Thank you." I moved to their table. The waiter, relieved, immediately brought over a fresh setting and a glass of the best Cabernet I'd ever tasted. "I'm Anthony," I said, feeling awkward. "Anthony?" Richard shook my hand firmly. "I'm Richard. This is the boss, Eleanor. That's our son Marcus, his wife Sarah, and the little nugget is Emily." "Nice to meet you," Marcus grinned. "Ignore my dad's jokes. They're a hazard." "I heard that." Richard feigned indignation. "So, Anthony, what brings you to the Harborview Solo? Don't tell me you're a food critic." "No." I took a sip of wine, the warmth spreading through my chest. "I'm a landscape architect. And, well, my family uninvited me this morning." The table went silent. Not the awkward silence of the crash earlier, but a sympathetic, heavy silence. "Uninvited," Eleanor repeated, her eyebrows narrowing. "Why on earth would they do that? I don't know why I told them. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the shock. Or maybe it was because, for the first time in forever, someone actually asked and waited for the answer. "My brother is sad because his girlfriend dumped him," I said, a dry chuckle escaping me. "And my mom thought my promotion would make him feel bad. So, I got banned." Richard slowly lowered his fork. "That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard." "That's not parenting," Eleanor said, her tone sharp as a gavel. "That's hostage negotiation." I laughed, a real laugh. "Yeah, I guess it is." "Well," Richard raised his glass, "to hell with them. Their loss is our gain. Because now I get to tell you the one about the turkey and the computer." "Dad, no," Marcus groaned. "What did the turkey say to the computer?" Richard grinned, eyes twinkling. I smiled, waiting. "I don't know, what?" "Google, Google, Google." Richard roared with laughter. It was a terrible joke. It was a dad joke in its purest form. and I threw my head back and laughed until my sides hurt. I laughed because it was innocent. It was light. It was everything my family wasn't. We ate. We talked. I found out Richard was a retired surgeon and Eleanor was a retired family court judge. That explained the piercing eyes. They asked me about my work, about my car. Richard was a car guy, thank God. About my life. They listened. They didn't interrupt to talk about themselves. They didn't compare me to anyone. For 2 hours I forgot about Linda. I forgot about Victor's rental Lamborghini. I forgot about Robert's silence. As the dinner wound down and the waiter brought the check, which Richard snatched before I could even reach for my wallet, Eleanor leaned in. "Anthony," she said, "you seem like a remarkable young man. Smart, resilient, and clearly you have excellent taste in cars if that key fob on the table is yours." I smiled. "Thank you, Eleanor. Don't let people make you feel small just so they can feel big," she said. It sounded like a ruling. "You deserve a seat at the table. If not theirs, then find a new table." She reached into her purse and pulled out a card. It wasn't a business card. It was personalized stationery. "We do Sunday dinner every week," she said, sliding it across the tablecloth. "My roast beef is better than this turkey. You are welcome anytime." I looked at the card. The Morrisons. I don't know what to say. "Say yes," Marcus said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Besides, I need someone to help me team up against Dad in chess." I walked out of that restaurant that night feeling strange. I had walked in an orphan, essentially. I walked out with a piece of paper in my pocket that felt heavier and more valuable than the title deed to my Porsche. 6 months passed. 6 months is a long time in a life, but in the silence between a parent and a child, it feels like an eternity. I didn't call Linda. She didn't call me. I checked my phone logs sometimes, just to be sure I hadn't missed a notification. Nothing. Not a missed call on my birthday. Not a text on Christmas. Just silence. It hurt. I won't lie and say I was over it immediately. There were nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I should apologize just to end the Cold War. But then I'd look at the card on my nightstand. The Morrisons. I started going to Sunday dinners. First, it was once a month. Then every other week. Then it became the anchor of my schedule. The Morrison house in Brookline was everything my childhood home wasn't. It was messy in a comfortable way. There were always books on the coffee table, half-finished puzzles, and the smell of something baking. One Sunday in May, I arrived early. I found Richard in the garage, buried under the hood of a 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback. It was a shell of a car, rusted and stripped. "Hand me that wrench, would you?" Richard grunted, not looking up. I handed it to him. I was wearing my Sunday best, but I didn't hesitate to lean over the fender. "The timing belt? Carburetor." Richard wiped grease on a rag. "She's fighting me. Stubborn girl. My dad, Robert." I corrected myself. "He never let me touch his cars. Said I'd scratch the paint. He leased a new BMW every 2 years. Never owned anything long enough to fix it." Richard stood up, wiping his hands. He looked at me. "There's no soul in a lease, Anthony. You fix things because you love them. You put the work in because you want to see them run right. That applies to cars and it applies to people." He looked at me pointedly. "Grab a pair of coveralls from the hook. If you're going to eat my food, you're going to help me get this engine turning." That afternoon, covered in grease and sweat, listening to Richard explain the mechanics of a V8 engine, I learned more about fatherhood than I had in 34 years with Robert. Richard didn't treat me like a guest. He scolded me when I stripped a bolt. He praised me when I got the tension right. He treated me like a son. Later that evening, the house was full. Marcus was there, and so was a woman I hadn't met before. "Anthony, this is Sarah," Eleanor said, a twinkle in her eye that I instantly recognized as trouble. "She's a pediatrician, and she's single, and she loves vintage cars." Sarah looked up from the glass of wine she was pouring. She had dark curls and a smile that lit up the room. Subtle, Eleanor. Very subtle. I wiped a smudge of grease off my cheek, feeling my face heat up. "Hi, I'm Anthony. I promise I usually clean up better." Sarah laughed. "I spend my days getting vomited on by toddlers. Greece is an upgrade." We talked for hours that night. Sarah understood. Her father had passed away when she was young, and she knew the hole that absence left. But unlike me, she had healed. She showed me that scars didn't have to define you. As my life with the Morrisons and Sarah bloomed, a shadow from my past tried to creep back in. My phone buzzed one Tuesday afternoon. It was my cousin, Jenny. Jenny was the only one in the Sterling family I still talked to. She was younger, a single mom, and always seemed to be on the outside of Linda's inner circle too. Or so I thought. "Tony," she chirped. "How are you? We miss you so much." "Hey, Jen," I said, wary. "Who's we?" "Oh, the family. Aunt Linda is, well, she's stubborn. But she asks about you. Sort of. I shouldn't have engaged. But the craving for connection is a powerful drug." "She does." "Yeah. Look, Tony, I'm actually calling because, well, things are tight. Little Timmy needs braces, and the college fund I tried to start is empty." "I know you're doing so well." The keyword triggered a warning bell in my head. College fund. Money. It always came back to money with the Sterlings. "How much, Jen? 2,000? I promise I'll pay you back when my tax return comes." I sighed. "I'll Venmo you, but Jen, don't tell them. Don't tell Mom I gave you money. I don't want them thinking they can use you to get to me." "Oh, never," Jenny promised. "I'm on your side, Tony. Always. By the way, I saw a picture of you on Facebook with a new girl. She's pretty." "Yeah," I smiled, looking at the framed photo of Sarah on my desk. "She's the one, Jen. I think I'm going to propose." "That's amazing," Jenny squealed. "Keep me posted." I sent the money. I thought I was helping a struggling single mom. I didn't know I was funding a spy. Jenny wasn't on my side. She was on the side of whoever had the purse strings. And while I gave her $2,000, Linda promised her acceptance into the inner circle, something Jenny craved more than cash. Every detail I fed Jenny, my promotion, my car, my relationship with Sarah, my closeness with the Morrisons, was being fed directly back to Linda. And Linda was sitting in her house in Connecticut, seething. Not because she missed me, but because I was thriving without her permission. Narcissists don't mind if you leave, as long as you fail. But if you leave and succeed, that is an unforgivable sin. I was building a castle. I didn't know Jenny was marking the weak points for the siege engines. 2 years later, the Harborview Grill, the same table where I had cried into my water glass. But this time, there were candles, rose petals, and a diamond ring sitting in a velvet box. "Yes," Sarah whispered, tears in her eyes. 1,000 times yes. The restaurant erupted in applause. I saw Richard and Eleanor at the bar. They had been hiding there, watching, raising their champagne glasses. Richard gave me a thumbs up. Eleanor dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. We were happy. It was the kind of happiness I used to think was fake in movies. We bought a house, a fixer-upper that Richard helped me renovate on weekends. We planned the future. But wedding planning has a way of digging up old graves. We were sitting in my living room, addressing invitations. The guest list was finalized. The venue was booked. A stunning vineyard estate that Mr. Henderson, my biggest client, had helped me secure. It was going to be the event of the season. "Okay," Sarah said, pen hovering over a cream-colored envelope. "The parents' names on the invite. Tradition says it's Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so invite you to the wedding of their daughter. But since we're paying for it ourselves, we can put whatever we want," I said. But I stared at the sample text. Parents of the groom. If I left it blank, it looked like I was an orphan. If I put Linda and Robert Sterling, it was a lie. They hadn't spoken to me in almost 3 years. They hadn't met Sarah. They didn't know I was engaged. "Tony," Sarah touched my hand. "You're going to that place again." I rubbed my face. I hate that they still have this power over me. Even a blank space on a piece of paper feels like they're winning. The next day, Eleanor called me. "Come over for tea, Anthony. Just you. I have something to discuss." I went to the house. Eleanor was in her study, a room lined with leather-bound law books. She was sitting behind her massive oak desk, not as Mom Eleanor, but as Judge Eleanor. "Sit down, Anthony," she said. She pushed a manila folder across the desk. "What is this?" I asked. "I spent 40 years in family court," Eleanor said, folding her hands. "I saw blood relatives tear each other apart over a toaster. And I saw foster families love children more fiercely than any biological parent ever could. I dealt with custody, inheritance, divorce, all the ugly ways people fight." She paused, her eyes softening. "But sometimes, rarely, I got to oversee an adoption. And those were the best days." I opened the folder. The top document read, "Petition for Adult Adoption." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Eleanor, adult adoption is a legal process," she explained, her voice steady but warm. "It's used when a person over the age of 18 wishes to be legally adopted by another adult. It severs the legal ties with the biological parents. New birth certificate, new next of kin, new name if you want it." She looked at me. "Richard and we didn't just find a friend in that restaurant. We found a son. We know you have parents, Anthony. We know they exist. But they vacated the position a long time ago." Tears pricked my eyes. "You want to adopt me? I'm 34 years old. I don't care if you're 54, she said fiercely. "A parent isn't who gave you DNA. It's who answers the phone when you call. It's who teaches you to fix the engine. It's who shows up. We want to show up, Anthony. Legally. Permanently. We want your name on the wedding invite next to ours because that is where you belong." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. The court date was 3 weeks later. It wasn't like a criminal trial. It was quiet. Just us, the lawyer, and the judge, who happened to be an old colleague of Eleanor's. "Mr. Sterling," the judge asked me, "do you understand that this order will permanently terminate the legal relationship between you and Robert and Linda Sterling? That they will no longer be your legal kin for purposes of inheritance or medical decisions?" "I understand," I said. My voice didn't shake. "And do you understand that Richard and Eleanor Morrison will become your legal parents, with all the rights and responsibilities thereof?" I looked at Richard, who was wearing his best suit and grinning like he won the lottery. I looked at Eleanor, who was gripping my hand so tight her knuckles were white. "I do." "Then, by the power vested in me," the judge smiled, banging the gavel, "I grant this adoption. Congratulations, Anthony Morrison." We hugged. It was a crushing, rib-breaking group hug right there in the courtroom. I felt lighter, physically lighter. The invisible tether that had bound me to Linda's expectations and Robert's cowardice was snapped. I was free. We celebrated with champagne. And then we sent out the wedding invites. "Richard and Eleanor Morrison invite you to the wedding of their son. Anthony, I made one mistake. Fatal one. I sent an invite to cousin Jenny. She's family," I told Sarah. "She's the only one who stayed in touch. She won't tell them. I trust her." Sarah looked dubious but supported me. "Okay, but make sure she knows it's strictly confidential." I called Jenny. "Jen, I'm inviting you, but you cannot tell Mom or Dad. Or Victor. Please, this is my day. I don't want a scene." "Oh my God, Tony. I am so honored," Jenny gushed. "My lips are sealed. I swear on Timmy's life, I won't breathe a word." She sounded so sincere. But sincerity is a cheap currency when you're desperate for approval. Jenny got the invite on a Monday. By Tuesday morning, she was sitting in Linda's kitchen, sipping tea. "You won't believe what Anthony is doing?" Jenny whispered, pulling the cream-colored envelope out of her purse. "And look at the venue. It's the Henderson estate. That place costs $50,000 just to rent." Linda snatched the invite. She read the names. Richard and Eleanor Morrison. Her face didn't turn red. It went pale, cold, dangerous white. "He replaced us," she whispered. Then her eyes narrowed. "And he's rich. He's pretending to be royalty with these These strangers. She looked at Victor, who was slumped on the couch, playing video games. Victor, get up, Linda commanded. Your brother is getting married, and we are going to pay him a visit. 3 days before the wedding, I was at home, packing for the honeymoon. Sarah was at the hospital finishing her rounds. The house was quiet, filled only with the excitement of what was to come. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. My blood ran cold. Standing on my porch were 3 people I hadn't seen in flesh and blood for 5 years. Linda, Robert, Victor. They looked older. Linda's face was tighter, more drawn. Robert looked smaller, his shoulders hunched. And Victor looked disheveled. He was wearing a designer t-shirt that was 2 sizes too tight and looked like he hadn't slept in a week. I opened the door. I didn't invite them in. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the heavy oak door behind me. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with adrenaline. Hello, Anthony, Linda said. She didn't hug me. She didn't smile. She looked past me at the house. My beautiful 2-story colonial with the manicured lawn. Then her eyes darted to the driveway where my Porsche Panamera was parked next to Sarah's Audi. Mom, I said. Dad. Victor. What are you doing here? We're family, Victor scoffed, stepping forward. He smelled like cigarettes and expensive cologne. We heard you're getting hitched. Figured we'd come congratulate the groom. You weren't invited, I said calmly. That was obviously a mistake, Linda said, waving her hand dismissively. Jenny showed us the invitation. A vineyard. Anthony? Really? You've certainly done well for yourself. I worked hard, I corrected. Something you wouldn't know about Victor. Victor's face twisted. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. Watch your mouth. You think you're better than us just because you got lucky? It wasn't luck, I said. And I'm not better than you. I just chose not to be miserable. We saw the invite, Anthony, Robert spoke up. His voice was shaky. It has other names on it. Morrison. Who are these people? They are my parents, I said. The silence on the porch was deafening. A bird chirped somewhere in the trees, oblivious to the tension. Excuse me? Linda laughed. A high, incredulous sound. I gave birth to you. I raised you. You don't get to just pick new parents like you pick a new car. You picked a new son when you chose Victor over me every single day of my life. I shot back. You told me not to come home, remember? Don't come home, Anthony. Victor doesn't want drama. Well, I listened. I found a new home. That was one Thanksgiving. Linda shrieked. Get over it. We are here now. We are willing to forgive you for ignoring us. Forgive me? I stared at her. The delusion was breathtaking. There is nothing to forgive. I moved on. You should too. Now, please leave my property. We're coming to the wedding, Linda declared, crossing her arms. I am the mother of the groom. I have a right to be there. I have a right to sit at the head table. No, I said. You don't. Victor suddenly lashed out. He kicked the tire of my Porsche. Thud. You selfish prick, Victor yelled. You have all this house, these cars, and you can't even help your family? Do you know what I'm going through? I don't care what you're going to through, I said, stepping between him and the car. Touch my car again, and I call the police. He's in debt, Anthony, Robert blurted out. Victor, he crashed a car. A rental. He owes a lot of money. We thought. Maybe since you're doing so well. I looked at Robert, then at Linda. The realization hit me like a bucket of ice water. That's why you're here, I said, my voice quiet. You didn't come because you missed me. You didn't come to reconcile. You came because Jenny told you I had money. You came because the golden child broke another toy and needs me to pay for it. Linda's eyes shifted. She couldn't hold my gaze. We are family, she repeated, weaker this time. Family helps family. You're right, I said. Family does help family. That's why the Morrisons are helping me plan my wedding. And that's why you're leaving. I pulled out my phone. I'm dialing 911. You have 10 seconds to get off my driveway. You wouldn't dare, Linda hissed. 1. I counted. 2. Come on, Mom, Victor spat, turning around. He's dead to us anyway. Let's go. This isn't over, Anthony, Linda shouted as she walked backward toward their beat-up sedan. You can't erase us. I will be at that wedding. The world will know what an ungrateful son you are. I watched them drive away. I stood there until the dust settled. I wasn't shaking anymore. I felt cold, hard resolution. I called Mike, the head of the security team I had hired for the wedding. Mike, I said, I need to give you 3 names and photos. If they show up anywhere near the venue, I want them stopped. But Mike, be ready. They're going to try something. Copy that, Mr. Morrison, Mike said. We'll handle it, Mr. Morrison. The name sounded right, but Linda was right about one thing. It wasn't over. Narcissists don't go down without a fight. They need an audience. And my wedding was the biggest audience they could find. The day of the wedding was perfect. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The Henderson estate was breathtaking. Rows of grapevines stretching over the rolling hills, a white marquee tent set up on the great lawn, and flowers everywhere. I stood at the altar in my tuxedo, watching Sarah walk down the aisle. She looked like an angel. Richard stood beside me as my best man. He patted my back when he saw me tearing up. Breathe, son, he whispered. You got this. We exchanged vows. I promised to love her, to honor her, and to build a home where everyone was welcome. The ceremony went off without a hitch. No Linda, no Victor. I started to relax. Maybe they had given up. Maybe my threat had worked. We moved to the reception tent. It was a massive, elegant affair. Mr. Henderson arrived in his Rolls-Royce Phantom, shaking hands and telling everyone how proud he was of his favorite architect. The atmosphere was filled with joy, clinking glasses, and jazz music. We sat at the head table. Me, Sarah, Richard, and Eleanor. Time for the introductions, the MC announced, his voice booming over the speakers. The guests took their seats. The room quieted down. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC began, please put your hands together for the happy couple, Anthony and Sarah. And now, a special introduction for the hosts of this evening, the people who made this beautiful union possible. I saw movement near the back of the tent. The flap of the tent was ripped open. 3 figures stormed in. They weren't wearing wedding attire. They were wearing the same clothes they had on 3 days ago, looking manic and desperate. Linda, Robert, Victor. They had bypassed the main gate by cutting through the vineyard fence. Security was chasing them, but they were already inside. Stop, Linda screamed. Her voice tore through the elegant atmosphere like a knife. The music cut out. 300 guests turned around in shock. Mom! I stood up. Sarah grabbed my hand, her grip tight. Linda marched down the center aisle, her eyes wild. You frauds! You thieves! She pointed a shaking finger at Richard and Eleanor. Those people are imposters. I am his mother. He is his father. How dare you sit there and take credit for my son? The room gasped. I saw Mr. Henderson frown, looking confused. I saw Jenny shrinking into her seat, terrified. Mrs. Sterling. Eleanor stood up. She didn't shout. She didn't look flustered. She looked like she was about to pass a sentence. Please lower your voice. You are frightening the guests. I don't care about your guests, Linda yelled, reaching the edge of the dance floor. I care about the truth. Anthony is my son, my blood. You can't just steal him because you have money. Victor stepped up beside her, looking sweaty and erratic. Yeah, and he owes us. He owes his family. You think you can drive a Porsche and leave your brother to rot? It was ugly. It was humiliating. It was exactly what Linda wanted. A scene where she was the victim. Anthony? Linda turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Fake, weaponized tears. Tell them, baby. Tell them I'm your mother. Tell them you love me. Please. Don't let these strangers take you away. For a moment, the room hung in suspension. Everyone looked at me, waiting. Was I going to crumble? Was I going to apologize? I picked up the microphone from the table. "You're right, Linda," I said. My voice echoed through the tent. "You gave birth to me." Linda sobbed, nodding. "Yes, yes, I did. But being a mother is more than biology," I continued, my voice hardening. "5 years ago, you told me not to come home. You told me I wasn't wanted. You chose Victor's comfort over my existence." "That was a mistake," she wailed. "No," I said. "It was a choice, and you made it every day for 30 years. I turned to Eleanor. She nodded at me. She reached under the table and pulled out a leather portfolio. "Linda," Eleanor said, her voice projecting clearly without the microphone. "I am Judge Eleanor Morrison, retired, and I don't deal in feelings. I deal in facts." She opened the portfolio and held up a document with a gold seal. "This," Eleanor announced to the room, "is a decree of adult adoption, signed by the Superior Court last month." Linda froze. "What?" "It means," Eleanor continued, "that legally, Robert and Linda Sterling are strangers to Anthony. His birth certificate has been reissued. His next of kin has changed. Anthony is, in the eyes of the law, and in the eyes of God, our son." "No!" Linda staggered back. "That's not possible. You can't do that." "It is done," I said. "You didn't want me at your table, Mom, so I found a new table. And now you don't have a seat at mine." "But the money," Victor blurted out. "The inheritance. If he's not your son, we can't." He stopped, realizing he had said the quiet part out loud. The crowd murmured. The motive was laid bare. "Get them out," I said to the security team who had finally caught up. As the guards grabbed Linda and Victor, I looked at Robert, my biological father. He hadn't said a word. He was just staring at me. Tears real this time, rolling down his face. "Dad," I said. Robert looked at Linda, who was screaming and kicking. He looked at Victor, who was shouting about his Ferrari debt. Then he looked at Richard, who was standing beside me, a hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Anthony," Robert whispered. "I was a coward." "Yes," I said. "You were." He turned and walked away, not fighting the guards. As they were dragged out of the tent, Linda's screams fading into the distance, a heavy silence fell over the wedding. I looked at Sarah. I looked at Richard and Eleanor. And I looked at the crowd, my friends, my colleagues, my chosen family. "I apologize for the interruption," I said into the mic. "But I think that's enough drama for one lifetime. DJ, hit it." The music blasted back on. The crowd erupted into cheers, louder and more supportive than before. People were wiping tears, hugging each other. Mr. Henderson gave me a standing ovation. I had reclaimed my life, publicly, legally, irrevocably. The silence that followed Linda's removal was heavier than the noise she had made. It was a vacuum sucking the air out of the tent. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The champagne bubbles in the glasses seemed to freeze. The band members were staring at their instruments as if they had forgotten how to play them. I stood there, the microphone still in my hand, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked at Sarah. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fierce. She squeezed my hand so hard I lost feeling in my fingertips. That pain was good. It grounded me. It told me I wasn't back in my childhood bedroom being yelled at. I was a grown man standing next to my wife in a vineyard I had paid for. "I apologize," I said again, my voice steadier this time. "We had some uninvited guests who couldn't handle the fact that happiness is a choice, not an inheritance." A slow clap started from the back. It was Mr. Henderson. He stood up, adjusting his tuxedo jacket, and raised his glass high. "To Anthony and Sarah," he bellowed, "and to the Morrisons, for showing us what real class looks like." The tension broke. It shattered like glass. The rest of the room erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It was a roar of support. My friends, my colleagues, Sarah's family, they were cheering not just for the wedding, but for the victory. They had seen the monster and they had seen us slay it. Go check on things, Sarah whispered, kissing my cheek. I'll hold down the fort. Don't let them ruin this. I love you, I said. I know. Now go finish it. I signaled to Richard. He nodded, stepping away from Eleanor to join me. We walked out of the tent, past the stunned catering staff, and into the cool night air of the vineyard. The scene at the front gate was chaotic, bathed in the flashing red and blue lights of a police cruiser. Mike, my head of security, wasn't taking any chances. He had called the local authorities the moment Victor threw a punch at one of his guards. I walked up to the patrol car. Victor was already in the back seat, handcuffed, thrashing against the window like a wild animal. He was screaming obscenities, his face pressed against the glass, distorted and ugly. Linda was standing by the hood of the police car, hysterical. She was gripping the arm of a young officer, wailing about police brutality and my rights as a mother. And then there was Robert. My biological father was sitting on the curb, his head in his hands. He looked small. He looked defeated. The arrogance he had worn when he arrived at my house 3 days ago had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow shell of a man. Mr. Morrison, Mike walked up to me, adjusting his earpiece. Sorry about the noise. The son took a swing at my guy when we escorted them out. That's assault. Plus, when the officers ran his ID. Well, it turns out there's an outstanding warrant for your brother. A warrant? I asked, looking at the police car. Grand larceny and fraud, Mike said, keeping his voice low. Something about a rental car agency in Miami. He rented a luxury vehicle, wrecked it, stopped payments on the insurance, and ghosted them. He owes them upwards of $40,000. I let out a short, dark laugh. The Lamborghini, the engine roar I had heard on the phone 5 years ago. It hadn't been a rental for fun. It had been the beginning of his end. Linda had likely drained her savings trying to cover for him, and when that wasn't enough, they came for me. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted a bailout. I walked over to Linda. She saw me approaching and stopped screaming at the officer. Her eyes lit up with a desperate, manic hope. Anthony! She lunged toward me, but Richard stepped in front of me, a solid wall of protection. Stay back, Linda, Richard said. His voice wasn't loud, but it had the steel of a surgeon who had held lives in his hands. You are not to approach my son. He is my son, Linda shrieked, pointing at me. Anthony, tell them to let Victor go. You have money, Anthony. You have connections. Mr. Henderson is in there. He knows the mayor. Just make a call. Please. He's your brother. I looked at her, really looked at her. For years, I had seen her as a giant, a tyrant who controlled my world. But now, under the harsh glare of the police lights, I just saw a sad, desperate woman in a dress that was too old and makeup that was running down her face. I can't help you, Linda, I said. Victor committed a crime. He has to face the consequences. You ungrateful brat, she spat, her face twisting from pleading to hatred in a nanosecond. After everything I did for you, I kept a roof over your head. I fed you. You did the bare minimum required by law, I said calmly. And then you cast me out the moment I became inconvenient. You didn't come here to celebrate me. You came here because you're broke and you needed a new host to leech off of. She froze. The truth hung in the air between us, undeniable. You have no claim on me, I continued. Eleanor showed you the papers. It's done. You are trespassing at a private event. If you don't get in your car and leave right now, I will ask the officers to arrest you too. Linda opened her mouth to scream again, but the fight suddenly went out of her. She looked at the police car where Victor was now crying, smashing his forehead against the seat. She looked at the lit-up tent where music was playing and people were laughing. A world she was permanently locked out of. She turned to Robert. Robert, do something. Talk to him. I turned my gaze to the man sitting on the curb. Robert slowly stood up. His knees cracked. He brushed the dust off his cheap slacks and looked at me. Dad, I said. It was the last time I would ever use that word for him. You have anything to say? Robert looked at Linda, who was waiting for him to defend her, to attack me, to fix it. Then he looked back at me. His eyes were wet. I was jealous, he whispered. I blinked. What? I was jealous of you, Anthony, Robert said, his voice trembling. For 30 years, I let her tell me what to do. I let her drive a wedge between us. I let her spoil Victor rotten because it was easier than fighting her. I hated myself for it. And when I saw you walk away 5 years ago, when I saw you build this life, I wasn't just proud. I was envious. He took a shaky breath. You did the one thing I was never brave enough to do. You left her. Linda gasped. Robert. Shut up, Linda, Robert said. He didn't yell. He just said it with a flat, exhausted finality. Just shut up. He looked at me one last time. You're a better man than me, Anthony. Richard is a lucky man. I hope you forget us. You deserve to forget us. He didn't wait for a response. He walked past Linda, ignoring her screeching, and got into the driver's seat of their beat-up sedan. He started the engine. Linda looked between the car and the police cruiser. She was torn. Her golden child was being hauled away to jail, and her husband was leaving her behind. Ma'am, the officer said, opening the back door of the squad car where Victor was. We're taking him to the county lockup. You can meet us there if you want to post bail. Linda looked at me one last time. There was no love in her eyes. Only the bitter, cold realization that she had lost the game she didn't even know she was playing. I hope you rot, she hissed at me. Goodbye, Linda, I said. She scrambled into the passenger seat of Robert's car just as he began to pull away. I watched their taillights fade into the darkness of the Vineyard Road. The police cruiser followed them, Victor's face a pale blur in the window. It was over. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Richard, you okay, son? He asked softly. I took a deep breath. The night air smelled of grapes and soil. It smelled clean. Yeah, I said, and I was surprised to find that I meant it. I'm okay. I feel light. That's the feeling of dropping a burden you were never meant to carry, Richard said. He squeezed my shoulder. Now come on. Eleanor is holding court with the DJ, and your wife is waiting for a dance. We walked back toward the tent. The music grew louder with every step. I wasn't walking back into a shelter. I was walking back into my life. I stepped onto the dance floor. Sarah saw me and rushed over. I took her in my arms, burying my face in her neck. We swayed to the music, surrounded by the people who actually loved us. I looked over Sarah's shoulder. Eleanor was sitting at the table, sipping champagne, looking like a queen who had just won a war. She caught my eye and raised her glass. I raised my hand in return. There were no empty seats at my table anymore. 1 year later, the smell of fresh paint still lingered in the air. A soft sage green, the color of new leaves in spring. I tightened the last screw on the crib and gave it a shake. Solid. Unshakable. Do you think she'll like it? I asked, standing up and wiping my hands on my jeans. Sarah stood in the doorway, holding a sleeping bundle in her arms. Emily Grace Morrison. She was 3 weeks old, and she was the most terrifying, beautiful thing I had ever seen. She's an infant, Tony, Sarah whispered, smiling. As long as it doesn't wobble and the mattress is soft, she'll love it. But I think it's perfect. I walked over and looked down at my daughter. Her tiny hand was curled into a fist against her cheek. She let out a soft sigh, shifting in her sleep. A wave of emotion hit me, so strong I almost had to grab the doorframe. I looked at this innocent little human, and I thought about the cycle. The cycle of trauma, of conditional love, of being made to feel small. It ended here. I gently touched her cheek with the back of my finger. I promise you, I whispered to her, you will never have to earn your seat at the table. You are the table. Downstairs, the doorbell rang. That'll be the grandparents, Sarah said. Eleanor has been vibrating with excitement since 6 a.m. She claims she found a vintage rocking horse at an estate sale. I went downstairs to open the door. Richard and Eleanor stood there, laden with bags and Sure enough, a wooden rocking horse tucked under Richard's arm. "It's not too much, is it?" Eleanor asked, bustling past me to hug Sarah. I tried to tell Richard to leave the stuffed bear in the car, but he insisted. "She needs the bear, Elle," Richard argued, winking at me. "Every kid needs a bear bigger than they are." We spent the afternoon in the living room. It was chaotic in the best way. Richard was trying to figure out how to unfold the high-tech stroller we had bought. Eleanor was holding Emily, cooing at her and explaining legal precedents for why grandmothers were allowed to spoil their grandchildren. Later, while Sarah was feeding the baby and Eleanor was making tea, I sat on the porch with Richard. The autumn leaves were turning gold and red, reminding me of that Thanksgiving 5 years ago. "I heard some news," Richard said quietly, looking out at the yard. "From a friend of a friend in the Connecticut legal circuit." I took a sip of my coffee. I knew who he was talking about. "Oh, the house in Connecticut is sold," Richard said. "Foreclosure, mostly. Linda is living in a small condo in Bridgeport. Robert had a stroke about 2 months ago. He's in a state-run nursing facility now." I stared at the steam rising from my mug. A year ago, that news might have gutted me. I might have felt a urge to rush to them, to fix it, to play the savior. "And Victor?" I asked, still serving time. "Grand larceny carries a sting. He'll be out in 18 months. But with a felony record, the golden boy shine is gone." I nodded slowly. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It wasn't glee. It was just a quiet acknowledgement of physics, action and reaction, cause and consequence. They had spent decades building a house of cards on a foundation of lies and favoritism. It was inevitable that it would collapse. "Do you feel the need to reach out?" Richard asked, no judgment in his voice, just a father checking on his son. I thought about Robert, alone in a nursing home bed, reaping the silence he had sown for 30 years. I thought about Linda, sitting in a small condo, bitter and blaming the world. "No," I said. "I don't. I have my family right here." Richard smiled and patted my knee. "Good answer." November rolled around again. Thanksgiving. 5 years ago, I had sat alone in a car, banned from my own home. Today, I was the host. Our dining room was full. The table was extended to its full length. We had invited Mr. Henderson, who had no family in town. We invited Mike, the security guard, who had become a close friend after the wedding. We invited Sarah's mom. And of course, Richard and Eleanor. The turkey was golden brown, sitting in the center of the table. But this time, nobody cared about the presentation. Nobody was taking photos for Instagram to prove how happy we were. We were too busy actually being happy. I stood up to make a toast. The room quieted down. Emily was gurgling in her high chair, smashing mashed potatoes with her fist. 5 years ago, I began, my voice thick with emotion. I walked into the Harborview Grill because I had nowhere else to go. I thought I had lost everything. I thought I was unlovable because the people who were supposed to love me didn't. I looked at Eleanor. She was beaming at me, her eyes shining. "But I learned something that night," I continued. "I learned that biology is the least important part of family. Family isn't about whose DNA you share. It's about who shares their food with you when you're hungry. It's about who stands in front of you when the world attacks. It's about who signs the paper that says, 'I choose you.'" I raised my glass. "To the Morrisons, thank you for choosing me. And to my daughter Emily. May you always know that you were chosen, wanted, and loved from the very first breath." "Here, here," Richard boomed. Glasses clinked. Laughter filled the room. The warmth was real. It wasn't a performance. I sat down and watched the scene. Marcus was trying to wipe potato off Emily's face. Sarah was laughing at a joke Mr. Henderson told. Eleanor was sneaking a piece of turkey to the dog under the table. I looked out the window. It was snowing lightly, the flakes drifting down in the darkness. Somewhere out there, in the cold, lay the wreckage of my past. But in here, in the light, was my future. I had broken the cycle. The pain stopped with me. I took Sarah's hand under the table and squeezed it. She squeezed back. I was finally truly home. Family is a complex word. For many of us, it's a source of comfort. But for some, like me, it was a source of endless pain. Writing this story brought back the raw reality that so many people face. The guilt of walking away. The biggest lesson I've learned, and what I hope you take away from my story, is that you have the right to fire your toxic family members. You are the CEO of your own life. If an employee was stealing from you, lying to you, and destroying your company culture, you wouldn't keep them around just because they've been there since the beginning. Why should family be any different? Setting boundaries isn't an act of hate. It's an act of self-preservation. And the most beautiful thing is that when you clear out the toxicity, you make space for the people who truly deserve to be there. The chosen family is real, and it is powerful. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make the hard choice to distance yourself from a family member to save your own sanity? Or maybe you've found your own Morrisons in unexpected places. Please drop a good in the comments if you believe that family is about love, not DNA. Or share your own story of setting boundaries. Your comments help me know that these stories matter, and they help others realize they aren't alone. Thank you for listening.